Hi, I'm Nicky V, and welcome to It's a Rerun, where cartoons continue to be friggin' awesome. And now that we got the introductions out of the way, let me tell y'all about Courage the Cowardly Dog.
We interrupt this program to bring you Courage the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage the Cowardly Dog!
Courage the Cowardly Dog was something of an anomaly. It was a show that really blended action, comedy, and horror together, which is something that very few cartoons can pull off. There are some cartoons like Ah Real Monsters that have some horror themes or scary looking characters, but for me at least, they didn't pack the same punch that Courage did when it came to scaring the pants off you. Here's the basic gist of the show.
Abandoned as a pup, he was found by Muriel, who lives in the middle of nowhere with her husband, Eustace Bay. But creepy stuff happens in nowhere. It's up to Courage to save his new home.
Thank you, newscaster guy. Now, one might look at the stuff Courage throws at you and go, well, this isn't scary at all. This is pure B-movie schlock. And to those people, I would say, you're only partially right. The show does draw heavy influence from 50s era B horrors, so much so that they might as well have just called the show Plan 9 from Nowhere, Kansas. But it uses those elements as the setup for some pretty freaky moments. Take, for example, the episode The Great Fusilli. In this episode, a traveling circus comes to town, and the owner promises to make Eustace and Muriel famous. But instead, Fusilli turns them into wooden marionettes. In the end, after accidentally turning Fusilli into a puppet himself, Courage takes the puppets of Eustace and Muriel back to their home, where Courage acts out a normal day using them as the marionettes that they now are. Here's the thing though, Eustace and Muriel are freaking dead! Courage is basically playing with their corpses and acting like nothing's different so he doesn't have to deal with the fact that Eustace and Muriel are freaking dead! Now, the weird part of this show, as we just saw from The Great Fusilli, is that you're never entirely sure whether or not the characters are going to make it to the end. This show's not that big on making a long-running continuity, which in most cases would be considered a bad thing. But in Courage, it keeps the tension going all the way until the end of the episode, because the odds of someone getting axed aren't totally negligible. Both Eustace and Muriel have both died at the end of several episodes, and Courage walks away from a lot of situations completely broken. It does kinda lose some tension when you know the story will reset to zero when the next episode starts, but in the moment it can lead to some edge-of-your-seat stuff. Take the first episode in the series, A Night at Katz Motel. Courage and his family are headed home from a vacation when they come across a cheap motel to stay the night at. The only problem? The owner of the motel, Katz, feeds his customers to his giant pet spiders. Right off the bat, that sounds like a plot ripped straight out of the cheesiest horror film you've ever seen. But part of what makes it creepy is the designs of the characters and how the camera interacts with them. Like how the camera gets within inches of the spiders' faces and constantly shows them gnashing their jaws together while drooling what looks like some type of acid or something. For an arachnophobe like me, that's creepy enough on its own. But then there's Katz himself, a lanky anthropomorphic cat who has these sinister yellow eyes that keep appearing out of the shadows and has this creepy music playing in the background. And as you might expect, he hates dogs. Throughout the episode, Muriel is fighting off one of the spiders while she's taking a bath, and Eustace is wrapped up in a spiderweb cocoon and is about to be eaten himself. They both make it out alive this time, but if you watch this episode blind with the knowledge that people could die, it'll keep you guessing until the end. Another clever trick that the animators use to leave you in a complete state of terror is when they change up the animation styles. Courage is a normal 2D animation most of the time. However, several antagonists and other characters are made with other animation styles that mesh into a completely unsettling strangeness, which is what the show was going for. Whether that's with 3D models like with King Ramses, who weirdly enough never scared me that much, but it gave everyone else I know night terror, so I guess he worked. Synchrovox like the Spirit of the Harvest Moon, Claymation like with this random lady, whatever the hell they used for this guy.
You're not perfect.
To an entire episode being done in CGI. By the way, that last one hasn't happened yet, but it's coming this Halloween to Cartoon Network. Set your hype meters to maximum! And then there's the villains of the show. This show doesn't have your typical run-of-the-mill, "Mwah, the world would be mine" villains. They're usually either supernatural entities who usually have good reasons to be upset, like King Ramses, who just wants his frickin' slab back, or shockingly realistic villains who I'm sure will hit a little too close to home for some people. An example of this would be Mad Dog from the episode The Masque. In this episode, a masked figure shows up on the farm and beats the hell out of Courage for no apparent reason. She just shows up with a kitchen sink and starts going to town on him. It's not revealed until later that the masked figure named Kitty has a severe hatred of dogs because her best friend is in an abusive relationship with a dog, Mad Dog. Courage finds the location of Kitty's friend Bunny as she's being dragged into what could generously be described as a crack house, and then it shows how Mad Dog treats Kitty in the privacy of their house. He wants Kitty to completely forget about Bunny. He threatens to kill both of them, all while under this delusion that Kitty is ruining his cred for hanging out with Bunny, and once he turns her into a sobbing mess, he smooth talks Bunny, making it seem like he's trying to do this for her own good. And when she tries to get away from him, he and the rest of his crew, well, it doesn't explicitly show what's happening, but that's probably for the best. Let me just point out that this is how domestic violence actually happens in real life! Maybe I should talk about something a little more lighthearted, like this show's comedy. And like everything else in the show, the comedy is frickin' strange. For reasons that are never actually explained, Courage is a shapeshifter, and whenever he needs to communicate something to Eustace and Muriel, he does so by changing into some weird creature to demonstrate that things are getting bad. It usually doesn't work, but his transformations are really well animated and usually pretty funny. Plus, his freakout scenes are pretty amusing. Either his body just falls apart like his skin would come flying off, leaving him a skeleton, or his head would get huge and his scream would be accompanied by some sound effect that indicates warning. It's weirdly humorous. Cartoon Network has had some great stuff in the cartoon era. I really enjoyed the Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Time Squad, and Codename Kids Next Door. But there was something different about Courage for me. It did things that I couldn't see anywhere else, and sometimes I was too scared to see it. It was strange, it was insane, and it was awesome. And that is why Courage the Cowardly Dog was always my favorite of the cartoons. I've watched it, you've watched it, it's a rerun. See y'all later.